It's a complicated and nuanced issue because Twinkie is the main character and she calls herself Twinkie. She's like, that's what I want to be referred to as, when Twinkie is commonly an insult, used against Asian American people that are too Americanized or like, oh, whitewashed or however you want to phrase it.
Today on Rainbow Country, Egghead and Twinkie, a new queer dramedy from award-winning filmmaker Sarah Combe Holland.
You're a lesbian?
Yes, I'm gay.
You can't possibly know that. You're too young.
I'm 17.
When I was 17, I wanted to be a marine biologist. And now look at me. I'm in real estate.
I'm running away. Right now. Are you in?
What? Where are you going?
Texas. I don't know, I thought it'd be fun. One last hurrah before college.
Twinkie, you sound insane. Is this about last night? Because I really didn't mean to make things awkward.
What about last night?
Never mind.
Here we go. Dallas, Texas, baby.
Let's do this!
Someone popular. Who are you talking to?
Just a friend from summer camp.
Liar! That makes 3 lies so far. You were saying.
Was I supposed to know that you were gay the whole time? Because now I just feel like an idiot.
Hey.
Hi.
Yeah, I don't know. Guess I thought you already knew.
I see the way that boy looks at you. Two are gonna be just fine.
I've known that I was gay since the 5th grade. And it's like everybody thinks that they know me better than I do.
You're my best friend and you're not acting like yourself.
I'm just trying to exist and have a life, and sometimes it feels like you can't be a part of that anymore.
Twinkie! Rise and shine! Today we're gonna turn that frown upside down. Well, lucky for you, we don't have to stop for snacks. What? Why? Stack it!
What? That's awesome.
Gummy bears, gummy worms, Cheetos, popcorn, baby wipes.
Baby wipes?
Well, yeah, for the Cheeto dust.
Duh.
Hey, duh.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Becker, and this is Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Sarah Combe Holland, hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I am well. Okay, so we just went back and forth there for a hot minute. How do you say your name correctly, especially your middle name?
It's Combe, so Sarah Combe Holland.
There you go.
Yeah, I had to make it hard for people. Yeah.
I have to say thank you so much for being here, to have your voice, your story be heard by the LGBT community and beyond. So thank you for this, especially to talk about your film, your feature-length film, your award-winning feature-length film, Egghead and Twinkie. I like to start from the base and build up. So talk to me about essentially the story that you're telling in your award-winning feature-length film, Egghead and Twinkie, and what's the story that you're telling?
Yeah, happy to. Egghead and Twinkie follows these two teenage best friends named Egghead and Twinkie as they travel across the country on this spontaneous road trip to meet Twinkie's online crush in person for the very first time. So it's kind of like a road trip movie, buddy comedy, teen movie all rolled into one.
I often like to talk about things that jump out to me in a film, whether it's a short film or a feature length, as in this case. The very opening really draws you in, a combination of live action, animation, voiceover. The opening of this film, was this always the intent? How did the opening come to be?
That's a really great question. It's actually a discovery that was made in post. So that whole intro, the animated intro where we see, cartoon Egghead and Twinkie, Twinkie kind of introduces herself, that was all created in the post-production process. So in the script, it was supposed to open with the scene that now comes after the intro, with Egghead and Twinkie in the diner. They're mad at each other. We don't know why. So kind of like this cold open thing where we're just thrown right in the middle of it. But it was during test screenings that we realized that opening was really not working because people were like, who are these people? Why are they fighting? And they weren't like intrigued. They just didn't understand what was going on, or like they weren't invested because they didn't know who these people were. So that's where we did some thinking, and our one of our editors on the project, Christy, she was like, "What if we opened it like into the Spider-Verse and we do this animated opening where we kind of catch everybody up to how we got here, kind of thing." So yeah, it was a fun discovery that happened during the edit process.
Fascinating. It's amazing how things work out, eh?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
The film Egghead and Twinkie, this is based on your award-winning short film, 2019 award-winning short film, Egghead and Twinkie. So here's the question. What originally inspired this story that started off as a short and now a feature length? What's the genesis for Egghead and Twinkie?
Yeah, it's been such a long road because Egghead and Twinkie originally started as a proof of concept short film. It was around 9 minutes long. So I guess if I'm including that, kind of the genesis of the idea of those characters, Egghead and Twinkie, that started when I was 19 and I'm 27 now, so do the math. But I think originally the idea it came to me because I had just come out to my own parents, and the coming out process was very fresh in mind. And I think I really wanted to make a comedy about coming out because I hadn't really seen that done. I feel like coming out historically has always been portrayed as something really scary and overwhelmingly negative, which I mean, it can be, but I think there is a certain power in being able to laugh at scary things. So I was like, oh, I want to make a comedy. And that's kind of where Egghead and Twinkie started.
So is it fair to say that this film is autobiographical then?
No, not really. It's definitely a fictional story, and Twinkie is honestly very different from me. She is
Mm.
her own person. I think it's more so just like certain feelings that I felt growing up, as a teen, being queer and mixed Asian. There are certain things I can relate to Twinkie about, but the story itself is definitely fictional.
Music. You use music really well. It helps to tell the narrative at times. Talk to me about the process of choosing the music that you do because it's great. It's a great aspect of the film.
Thank you. Yeah, I was super picky about the music, so I'm so glad to hear that. The music
And
is
it's
one of
also
my
very
favorite
retro in a sense, like almost like very 80s.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I listen to a lot of 80s music, so that honestly makes sense. On my Spotify Wrapped, Spotify told me 80s is my biggest genre, so I'll take that as a compliment. But yeah, the music, it was a big process because we're a super scrappy micro budget film, so like trying to get all the licensing for all those tracks was a huge, huge process, and especially trying to get them to like work with us at our budget level. But a lot of those artists were like super indie, kind of hipster niche artists that I had found over the years. And it was a lot of reaching out to people and chasing them down with the help of our music supervisors, trying to get that licensing in place. But yeah, I made those playlists very early on when I was writing the film. So it was really awesome to get to use a lot of those same tracks that I'd been listening to from the
Mm.
beginning.
So, what was the process like for you? As you just said, this is a micro budget film, indie, scrappy. What was the process like for you to make this feature length film? Did you run up against a lot of, obstacles, like people saying, no, you can't tell this queer story, you can't tell this LGBT story? What was the process like?
Well, the good news about your point about, oh, you can't tell this story is that because we were making it on such a small scale and because we were basically doing it all ourselves, there was no like studio or big exec to tell us no. So, I mean, I got to tell the story I wanted to tell. I think more so it was just the obstacles were related to, do we have enough money for this? How do we get this person to come down, to our budget level? Or how do we get these 22 locations when we only have X money? So it was a lot of like being creative, I guess, to get what we needed. Yeah, it was challenging. I mean, it's a road trip movie, so there's like 22 different locations, and just trying to get all that in order and plan out a shooting schedule that made sense for people was pretty complicated.
Best Comedy Feature, Cinquest Film Festival. Best Narrative Feature, Florida Film Festival and Chicago LGBTQ plus International Film Festival. Just 3 awards that your film Egghead and Twinkie have earned. What do you think it is with your film that is resonating with audiences? What is it about your film that you think people are liking?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think there are various aspects of the film that resonate with different people. I think maybe one of the most global themes is friendship, best friendship. I think people resonate with that when they see Egghead and Twinkie together and just their dynamic and how much they love each other and how that kind of grows and changes over the course of the film as Twinkie comes out. I think also a lot of queer people of all ages have come up to me and say that they felt represented or that they wish they had this film when they were growing up, and that's been really rewarding to hear.
Yellow on the outside, white on the inside. Twinkie. I haven't heard the term Twinkie before, but I've heard munja cake. I've heard coconut, all that sort of stuff, especially within the LGBT community. Uh, Talk to me about this aspect of the film and how this came to be, how this is included in the film, and the origins of the name Twinkie.
Yeah, it's a complicated and nuanced issue
Hmm.
because Twinkie is the main character and she calls herself Twinkie. She's like, that's what I want to be referred to as, when Twinkie is commonly an insult, used against Asian American people that are too Americanized or like, oh, whitewashed or however you want to phrase it.
Hmm.
So it was something I was a little nervous to include in the film, honestly, especially
Hmm.
since the movie is like so silly, goofy, and lighthearted. And then to kind of touch on racial themes was something I really wanted to do right by. But I felt like it was important. It was something that was a part of the script. It was a part of the short from the very beginning, because I did want to open up this conversation about what it means to be Asian American, what it means to be mixed race. I think a lot of people in the Asian American community struggle with not feeling Asian enough for whatever reason, whether that's because they're mixed or adopted, or maybe they've been in America for many generations and they don't feel as connected to their culture. So I wanted to at least start a conversation about it because I do think it's something that would be impacting Twinkie, especially with her growing up in kind of like white suburbia in Florida.
I too am mixed race and multiracial, and so I could relate to not necessarily the term Twinkie, but the idea of not fitting in, not being this enough or that enough, and when that was happening in the film, I was like, well done to Twinkie to take that term back and owning it so that people can't weaponize it against her. It's like, you're a Twinkie. It's like, yeah, I am. So what? Let's move on, shall we? The
Yeah, and I think that's such an interesting thing that happens, right? Like reclamation of words. Like that's
Mhm.
something we see in the LGBT community as well, with so many people identifying as queer and using that word now. And for the longest time, like that was a no-no word to use. So it is just kind of an interesting thing, different, I think, minority groups reclaiming certain words that maybe have a bad history.
The title, Egghead and Twinkie. Is there an origin story to how this particular title came to be?
Well, it started with naming the characters first, and I guess the name of Twinkie popped into my head because I was thinking about all those things we just discussed, racial identity and such. And then Egghead just came along shortly after. I don't know, it's weird. I like didn't really think about it. It all just kind of fell into place, and I was like, oh, that sounds nice. I like those names. It fits the characters. And then the title, it just makes sense to put them both together.
Okay, so you and I are both part of the LGBT community. And for myself, I am gay. You are queer,
Queer. Yeah.
Asian, American. Uh, in your bio, you refer to yourself as queer. And for you, how does queerness refer to yourself? Like, talk to me about that. And we were just mentioning it earlier about taking back terms and reusing them. So for yourself, how does queerness represent you?
Yeah, I think, well, to kind of go back to what we were saying earlier, there's a lot of power in reclaiming these words that have been weaponized against our community. So that's one thing. And then also, I like kind of the broadness of queer. It's sometimes hard to define like shades of gay, I guess. So for me, like I dated a boy in high school when I was 16, 17, and that was my only relationship I've ever had with a guy. But I do think I maybe had feelings for him back then. I don't date men anymore. I've only dated women, but it still seems I'm like, I don't know, I feel like mostly gay, but it's like, how do you quantify that? So the nice thing about queer is I feel like it's kind of open-ended and I feel like it's more representative of who I am, especially since I feel like I'm pretty dialed in like culturally and I love learning about queer history and just like the way I live my life, with my girlfriend is very, very gay, very queer. So that's that's the word I like to use. Yeah.
I love your answer because for me, and I'll be really honest with you, I don't necessarily use the term queer for myself in my personal life. On the show, professionally, of course, I will, and I do. But for me, what I've been finding doing the show now almost 10 years is that, and more so now in the last few years, people are using the term queer if, maybe it's a very, straight looking man and presenting man, but he paints his nails and uses the term queer but has nothing to do with like being in same-sex relationships, that sort of thing, right? And so that's what I'm finding, and that's what I'm starting to ask people now, especially when they come to me and they're a part of the show now, and in their history and their bio they say, queer this, queer that, queer the other. I'm like, okay, let's find out where you really sit. And
You're
for
like, well,
your
what do you mean? Yeah.
exactly, because some people, queerness represents their political views and that's it. And so while it is an umbrella term, it's almost like it doesn't necessarily refer to same-sex relationships
Mm.
anymore. And gender, of course, gender and gender identity, to me, it's its own thing that can be, of course, queer, but it's like, where do you fit in the term of queer in that umbrella? And I'm so glad that you were open and honest enough to go there with me. So thank you for that.
No, totally. I mean, it's a whole conversation I feel like right now in our
It
community.
is.
So,
It
yeah.
is. Do you think that as a filmmaker, as an award-winning filmmaker, do you think that the content that you're making, you're doing it through a queer lens, through an LGBT lens?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's like if you've gone through all the experiences of coming out and dating people of the same gender and immersing yourself in the community and our history, like I think that changes how you move through life and how you see the world, and that impacts the art that I make and want to make.
Do you find it challenging to want to tell these stories, these LGBT stories, these queer stories, and finding the talent to tell them? What's that process? What has that process been like for you to find, trans actors, to find lesbian actors, to find gay actors, to find bisexual actors or pansexual actors, whatever the situation calls for? How are you finding the talent pool out there?
Yeah, it is challenging. And especially I think, talking about Egghead and Twinkie, this film, we were shooting in Florida. That's where I lived for 7 years. And before that, I was living in Texas. So, being gay in the South is a very different experience. So I think being in Florida, I wanted to be very respectful of people's privacy and not, ask people straight up if they didn't volunteer the information. So I think it was more so trying to find actors that I felt took the representation very seriously and they understood the impact and the meaning behind it. And I feel really lucky. I had so many deep conversations with my main cast about, what it means to come out or like my story, because that did kind of impact the events of the script. And yeah, I could tell, they all took it seriously and understood, the mission of what we were trying to do. Um, so that was more so how I went about it with this film in
Mm.
particular.
You just mentioned Florida and Texas, and growing up in essentially those two states and being part of the LGBT community and queer. What was it like for you growing up in Texas?
Well, I should clarify, it could be a lot worse. I was in Austin, which everybody
Mhm.
loves. Austin is great. But I did grow up in a very white majority rich community called Westlake, which if you know anybody that lives in Austin, they'll probably hear Westlake and be like, ooh, yeah, Westlake has a reputation. So I think growing up in that sort of community, I think there was maybe one gay couple in my school when I was growing up. So definitely felt a little bit at odds with the world, I think.
What are your thoughts on what's happening now, especially in those two states in particular, politically,
Yeah, it's
and its
upsetting.
impact on the LGBT and queer communities?
Yeah, no, it is. It's upsetting and it's hard, when I've seen both of those places, Texas and Florida, as my home, and I know so many wonderful people that live there, and there's so many great things about those states. I mean, like that's where my ties are, right? Um, but I think it is also hard to accept certain realities, like with Egghead and Twinkie, for example, right? It's such a Florida film. We shot the whole thing in Florida. Most of our cast and crew are from Florida. Um, and in a sense, I guess it feels good to know like this film is needed now, in Florida. But it is upsetting because like we shot this whole Florida movie and then I was talking to a teacher friend and he really wanted to show it at his school. And he was like, I feel like even with all like the don't say gay stuff happening, he was like, I feel like we might be able to get it through because we've shown other movies that are frankly way more um, I guess like violent or sexual or whatever in nature than Egghead and Twinkie. He's like, your movie is very tame and very teeny bopper. I think it should be fine. And he like asked a few different people, went all through the different levels or whatever. And basically it got shut down because the school was like, we just can't take the risk right now of showing anything LGBT themed at all, no matter how, tame it is or whatever. So that wasn't like all that unexpected, but still, it sucks that the movie we made in Florida for Florida teens can't be shown to Florida teens.
In 2025.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I think that conversation was a couple years ago, but it hasn't gotten much better.
Mhm.
So,
You earned a Master's of Fine Arts from the University of Central Florida. Why was it important for you to have a background, to have an educational background in the performing arts? Why was that important for you?
well, I knew that I wanted to study either acting or film, and I ended up choosing film. And it was really important to me to go to a school with a BFA program that had a hands-on component, access to film equipment where I could get out there and make films during my time in school. And UCF really fit the bill there. I made several films when I was in college and worked on a lot of different sets. And I think that element of like hands-on experience was really worthwhile for me just because um yeah, at my school and like where I grew up, I didn't know a lot of other people that wanted to do film. So just meeting a bunch of other people that were down to work together and collaborate on stuff was really cool.
Hmm. Do you find what you learned in school came in handy on Egghead and Twinkie?
Oh, totally. So actually, this is where I should clarify. When I say that Egghead and Twinkie is a super scrappy micro-budget movie, it is. And a big part of that is because it was made by mostly college students.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, we have very strong ties with UCF. So
Mm.
I was getting my master's thesis. I was doing an MFA at UCF while I was shooting Egghead and Twinkie. So Egghead and Twinkie, the feature, is actually my MFA thesis film. So I wrote a 300-page document about the making of Egghead and Twinkie. That was part of my dissertation, and then the actual film itself was part of my degree. So it was a massive part in the making of the movie.
Wow. And now Tribeca Films have stepped up and you guys secured a distribution deal. So talk to me about this and how will the general public be able to see this film?
Yeah, no, we're super, super excited to be with Tribeca Films. And yes, we just released on streaming platforms in North America. So it can be rented or bought on a variety of platforms, including Apple TV, Amazon Prime, um, Google Play, YouTube, etc. And if people want to learn more about the film and click on the links to stream, all of that is on our website, which is eggheadandtwinkie.com.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel that your little scrappy film made by students
Yeah.
will be able to be streamed in people's homes across North America and hopefully the world? How does that make you feel?
No, it's pretty crazy. I mean, it's been such a long journey, and we were doing festivals for such a long time too that at a certain point I was like, oh my God, are we ever going to release this thing? So I think everyone is really, really excited that it's finally somewhere that people can see it. Especially because this film is pretty unique in that we actually raised a pretty large online following around the making of this film. So there are thousands of people that have been waiting for this film to come out since like 2020 when we first started posting on socials about it. So it's been nice to be able to tell them, oh, at least in North America, you can
Since
watch it.
2020, when you started posting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Here's my last question for you. You are an award-winning filmmaker. Your feature-length film is out now to the world to see. What do you hope audiences come away with after they've seen Egghead and Twinkie?
Oh, well, I've been told, and this is one of my favorite compliments about the film, but I've been told this from a few different people now and different reviewers that watching this movie feels like a warm hug. So I hope that that's what it feels like, for people that go and stream it, because I think as we've kind of talked about in this conversation, there's like a lot of darkness in the world, and I think it's easy to feel kind of hopeless sometimes. So I hope that this movie is just like a nice escape for people, that they can watch it and feel that warm hug feeling, and know that there are people out there like Egghead that will accept them for who they are unconditionally. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, Sarah Combe Holland, well said, well done, well filmed, well made. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being on the show. Very enjoyable. Very enjoyable of this film, Egghead and Twinkie. Well done.
Thank you, Mark. I'm glad you think so.
You're a lesbian?
Yes, I'm gay.
You can't possibly know that. You're too young.
I'm 17.
When I was 17, I wanted to be a marine biologist. And now look at me. I'm in real estate.
I'm running away. Right now. Are you in?
What? Where are you going?
Texas. I don't know, I thought it'd be fun. One last hurrah before college.
Twinkie, you sound insane. Is this about last night? Because I really didn't mean to make things awkward.
What about last night?
Never mind.
Here we go. Dallas, Texas, baby.
Let's do this! Someone popular. Who are you talking to?
Just a friend from summer camp.
Liar! That makes 3 lies so far. You were saying?
Was I supposed to know that you were gay the whole time? Because now I just feel like an idiot.
Hey.
Hi.
Yeah, I don't know. Guess I thought you already knew.
I see the way that boy looks at you. Two are gonna be just fine.
I've known that I was gay since the 5th grade. And it's like everybody thinks that they know me better than I do.
You're my best friend and you're not acting like yourself.
I'm just trying to exist and have a life, and sometimes it feels like you can't be a part of that anymore.
Twinkie!
Rise and shine! Today we're gonna turn that frown upside down.
Well, lucky for you, we don't have to stop for snacks. What? Why? Stack it!
What? That's awesome.
Gummy bears, gummy worms, Cheetos, popcorn, baby wipes.
Baby wipes?
Well, yeah, for the Cheeto dust.
Duh.
Hey, duh.